The most important piece of news in the Second World War does not arrive in Berlin through an ambassador, a cipher machine, or an intelligence officer. It arrives on the evening of December 7th, 1941, through a commercial radio broadcast, a press bulletin announcing that Japanese aircraft are attacking the American fleet at Pearl Harbor. The German Foreign Ministry hears about its allies' war the same way a farmer in Ohio does. Joachim von Ribbentrop refuses to believe it. The foreign minister is at his residence when the report reaches him. His interpreter, Paul Schmidt, will later record the reaction. Ribbentrop dismisses the bulletin as a propaganda trick, an enemy fabrication designed to provoke Germany into a false step. He declines to be disturbed further. The man responsible for Germany's alliance with Japan spends the first hour of the Pacific War insisting the Pacific War is not happening.
He has a reason to be confused. He was never told. 9 days earlier, Ribbentrop had sat with Japan's ambassador, General Hiroshi Oshima, and made him a promise. If Japan found itself at war with the United States, Germany would join immediately. It was said grandly, the way Ribbentrop said most things, a gesture of solidarity, offered without a staff study, without consulting the army, without asking a single German admiral or economist what war with America would mean. The promise was meant to stiffen Japan's resolve. Tokyo took the promise. It did not return the courtesy of a warning. Now the telephone traffic begins. Oshima calls the foreign ministry, seeking Ribbentrop. He is a striking figure in Berlin, a general in diplomat's clothing, so fluent in the language and so devoted to the Reich that German officials joke he is more Nazi than the Nazis. His government has just launched the largest surprise attack in naval history. Its own ambassador learned of it from the radio. The alliance Germany calls the Axis has no working parts. 1,200 kilometers to the east, in a compound of concrete and pine forest in East Prussia, the man who will decide what happens next is buried in a different catastrophe. At the Wolfschanze, Adolf Hitler's situation conferences that week are consumed by maps of the Moscow front, and the maps are moving the wrong way. 2 days earlier, on December 5th, the Soviet Union launched a counteroffensive against Army Group Center, with reserves German intelligence insisted no longer existed. The army that was supposed to be destroyed is attacking. The reports coming into the headquarters from the front read like distress signals. Engines will not start in the cold. Weapons freeze. Men who marched from the border in summer uniforms are losing fingers, feet, faces to frostbite, because the institution that planned the invasion planned for it to be over before winter. The winter clothing exists. Much of it sits in depots and rail yards far behind a front the railways can barely feed. The Wehrmacht is not losing to an enemy it underestimated. It is losing to a season it refused to schedule. This is the state of the German High Command on the night the radio speaks. Its Chief of the Army General Staff, Franz Halder, is filling his war diary with breakthroughs, gaps, and frozen divisions. Its field commanders are begging for permission to retreat. Its Führer is refusing. Into this room, this exhausted, snow-blind, overstretched room, walks the news that a new enemy may be joining the war. And the reaction at the Wolfschanze is not dread. Hitler receives the bulletin from his press chief and, by the account of his Foreign Office liaison, Walther Hewell, is elated, slapping his thighs, declaring the turning point has come. A power that has not lost a war in 3,000 years, he says of Japan, is now on Germany's side. The men around him watch a leader who has just been handed a second front respond as if he has been handed a rescue. No one in the room asks the obvious question out loud. What does America bring to the other side? The materials to answer that question exist inside the German state. The military attachés in Washington have filed reports on American industry for years. Germany's own economists know what Detroit and Pittsburgh produce. But there is no meeting scheduled, no assessment ordered, no memorandum requested. In this system, strategic decisions do not rise from studies. They descend from one man's certainty. Tonight, that man is certain the news is good. In Berlin, Ribbentrop's disbelief has burned off, and something else has replaced it. When he speaks with Italy's foreign minister, Count Ciano, in the coming hours, Ciano will note in his diary that Ribbentrop is overjoyed at the Japanese attack, so visibly delighted that Ciano privately wonders what exactly Germany has gained. The minister who was not warned is now the war's loudest advocate. There is one problem, and it is written into a treaty, the Tripartite Pact, the document Ribbentrop himself signed in September 1940, obligates Germany to defend Japan only if Japan is attacked. Japan has not been attacked. Japan has struck first, without notice, without consultation, without a word to Berlin. On paper, Germany owes its ally nothing. The lawyers in the foreign ministry know this by morning. What they do not yet know is that the treaty will not matter. On the morning of December 8th, General Oshima arrives at the foreign ministry to collect on a promise. He does not come to inform Germany of Japan's plans. Tokyo still has not done that formally. He comes to demand that Germany declare war on the United States at once, citing the assurance Ribbentrop gave him at the end of November. And Ribbentrop, the man who made the promise, hesitates. He tells Oshima that Germany must examine the question, that the Tripartite Pact commits the Reich to join a war only if Japan is directly attacked. It is the first and last time Joachim von Ribbentrop will hide behind the fine print of his own treaty. He is not stalling because he doubts the war. He is stalling because the decision is not his to make, and the man whose decision it is has not yet spoken. In this government, a treaty means whatever Hitler decides it means. Inside the ministry on the Wilhelmstrasse, the professionals see the opening. State Secretary Ernst von Weizsäcker, a former naval officer who serves the regime while filling his private papers with doubts about it, holds the legal position in his hands. Japan attacked first. No obligation exists. Germany is free. The career diplomats around him understand what that freedom is worth. America is already arming Britain, already escorting convoys, already fighting an undeclared war in the Atlantic. But an undeclared war leaves Roosevelt with a public that does not want to send its sons to Europe. A German declaration would solve Roosevelt's problem for him. None of this analysis rises. The Foreign Ministry of 1941 is not an institution that advises. It is an institution that anticipates. 6 years of purges, humiliations, and lost turf wars have taught the Wilhelmstrasse that influence flows to whoever tells the Führer what he already wants to hear, fastest, and with the most conviction. Weizsäcker's objection is recorded in his own notes. It never becomes an argument in a room where arguments matter. Consider what is not happening in these 72 hours. The Army General Staff is not asked to assess a war against the United States. Franz Halder, the precise, pince-nez chief of that staff, a man drowning in the collapse of the Moscow front, gives Pearl Harbor a passing line in his war diary and returns to the crisis eating his divisions alive. The Luftwaffe is not consulted. The war economists are not consulted. The Reich is about to double its enemies, and the men who run its war have not been invited to the conversation. There is one warning already on file, and it is specific. For 2 years, Hans Thompson, Germany's chargé d'affaires in Washington, has cabled the same message in different words. Do not underestimate this country.
He has reported on American industrial capacity, on the hardening of public opinion, on the certainty that the United States will fight effectively once committed. Thompson sits closer to American power than any German official alive. His cables arrive. They are filed. Berlin has stopped asking Washington questions it does not want answered. On December 9th, Hitler returns to Berlin from the Wolfschanze by train. The decision, by every indication, is already made. Ribbentrop will later claim he raised the legal escape and was overruled. Hitler telling him the United States is already shooting at German submarines in the Atlantic, that a great power does not wait for war to be declared upon it. Whether the foreign minister ever truly resisted, only his post-war testimony insists. What the record shows is a ministry racing to draft the war it supposedly questioned. Now the Wilhelmstrasse finds its purpose. Ribbentrop's staff works with Oshima and the Italians on something Germany suddenly wants very badly: a new agreement binding all three Axis powers to wage the war jointly and, above all, to conclude no separate peace. The ministry that could not get a warning out of Tokyo before the attack now negotiates the terms of its loyalty after it. Ciano, watching from Rome, has already noted Ribbentrop's joy at the Japanese attack and wondered in his diary what Germany actually stands to gain. Rome is asking the question Berlin will not. The choreography accelerates. The Reichstag is summoned for December 11th. The declaration is drafted, its language reaching back through years of grievance. Roosevelt's speeches, the Atlantic incidents, the aid to Britain, a legal brief for a decision that was never legally required. Weizsäcker processes the paperwork of a policy he privately believes is madness. Thompson in Washington prepares to hand over a note that answers his own 2 years of warnings. Every institution is now performing its function perfectly, in service of a question none of them examined. And at the center of it stands Ribbentrop, vain, isolated, despised by the generals and mocked by his own diplomats, who has finally found the moment where his ministry leads and the Wehrmacht follows. The Foreign Office cannot win territory. It can only widen wars. On December 10th, the text of the declaration goes to the printers. The one man who could still stop it is writing his speech. One institution in the Reich greets the coming declaration not as a gamble, but as a release. For the Kriegsmarine, war with America is not a new front opening. It is a war already being fought, with one hand tied behind its back, by order of the Führer himself. The German Navy has been dying for permission to shoot back. The file of grievances is long and specific. In September, the American destroyer Greer trailed a U-boat for hours, guiding British aircraft onto it. In October, the Carney took a torpedo escorting a convoy in the North Atlantic. On the last day of October, U-552 sank the destroyer Reuben James west of Iceland. Over 100 American sailors dead, more than a month before Pearl Harbor. Roosevelt has ordered his Navy to shoot German submarines on sight. American warships hunt German boats, by standing order, must not fire first. The order comes from Hitler, and it exists because of a lesson he carries from the last war. The unrestricted U-boat campaign of 1917 brought America into the conflict and buried the Kaiser's Germany. So while his armies drive toward Moscow, he holds his submarines on a leash, absorbing losses and humiliations to keep Washington neutral for one more season. It is one of the few subjects on which Hitler practices genuine restraint. Pearl Harbor makes the restraint pointless overnight. At Naval Headquarters, Grand Admiral Erich Raeder has argued for months that the United States is a belligerent in everything but name, that the leash costs Germany the Atlantic while buying nothing. Raider is the old Navy in a single frame. Formal, Wilhelmine, a gunnery officer of the Kaiser's fleet who attends church and detests the party's crudeness, yet has pushed as hard as any man in Germany for the widest possible naval war. Now events have handed him his argument. For once, the Führer's instinct and the Navy's doctrine point the same direction. Beneath Raider, in a requisition villa on the French coast at Carnival, sits the man who will have to turn the declaration into sinkings. Vice Admiral Karl Dönitz commands the U-boat arm from a room of charts and message logs, tracking every boat in the Atlantic like a chess player who has only ever loaned his pieces. His calculation is brutally simple, and he has preached it for years. This is a tonnage war. Sink Allied shipping faster than Allied yards can build it, and Britain starves. America's entry does not frighten that arithmetic. For a brief window, it feeds it. Because Dönitz can see what is waiting off the American coast, an unescorted, unorganized stream of merchant shipping, tankers running alone with lights burning, coastal cities glowing behind them, a navy with no convoy system on its own seaboard. Every professional instinct tells him the first weeks will be a slaughter. He begins planning the strike before the declaration is even signed. He gives it a name, Paukenschlag, a drumbeat, and then he counts his drums. Dönitz asks for 12 of the large Type 9 boats, the only ones with the range to fight off New York and Cape Hatteras and come home. The request goes up the chain and comes back gutted. Boats are tied down in Norwegian waters on Hitler's orders, guarding against an invasion that exists mostly in his intuition. Others have been pushed through Gibraltar into the Mediterranean to rescue the situation in North Africa, a diversion Dönitz fought and lost weeks earlier. The greatest target-rich environment of the naval war is about to open, and Germany can send 5 submarines, 5 boats, for a coastline stretching thousands of kilometers. The men at Carnival plot their sailing dates in the second half of December, knowing the crossing alone will eat 2 weeks of fuel and the war will not wait. Dönitz records his frustration in the war diary of the U-boat command with the flat precision of a man building a paper trail. The institution loudest in favor of war with America is the one arriving at that war nearly empty-handed. And there is a deeper shortage underneath the shortage. In 1939, Raider's staff drafted the Z Plan, a balanced fleet designed to challenge sea powers, built around battleships and carriers, scheduled for completion years in the future. The war came early. The Great Fleet was never built. The U-boat arm that must now carry a 2-ocean burden began this war with a fraction of the boats Dönitz calculated he needed to strangle Britain alone. Nobody has calculated what it needs to fight Britain and America together. Nobody has been asked to. At the Wolfschanze and in Berlin, no one making the decision of December 11th requests the Navy's numbers, the boats available, the boats building, the tonnage arithmetic against American shipyards. Raider's headquarters welcomes the declaration on the assumption that the window off the American coast will stay open long enough to matter. Dönitz plans for months of easy hunting before the Americans organize. Both men are, for a short while, going to look right. The 5 boats will sail with orders to hold fire until a set date, so the drumbeat lands as one blow. Their commanders carry charts of an unfamiliar coast and the promise of the richest hunting of the war. What none of them carry is an answer for the day the hunting stops. The deputies who file into the Kroll Opera House on the afternoon of December 11th already know what they are there to do. The Reichstag of the Third Reich does not debate, it witnesses. 600 men in uniform take their seats to watch a decision that was made days ago. By one man. Receive the costume of a national act. No parliament in history has been asked to approve so much while deciding so little. Hitler speaks for 88 minutes. Most of the speech is not about Japan at all. It is a settling of accounts with Franklin Roosevelt. A catalogue of grievances reaching back years. The speeches, the sanctions, the destroyers traded to Britain, the shoot-on-sight order in the Atlantic. He mocks Roosevelt as the creature of Jewish backers and contrasts him with his own rise. The hall answers with applause on cue. Then, near the end, the sentences that change the war. Germany considers herself at war with the United States of America. It is the only formal declaration of war Adolf Hitler ever issues. Poland was invaded at dawn without one. The Soviet Union was invaded at dawn without one. Denmark, Norway, Holland, Belgium, France, Yugoslavia, Greece, none received the courtesy of paper before the bombs. The single country Hitler declares war on, with legal formality and a public ceremony, is the one country whose war machine his own cannot reach. The United States is the only major power on Earth that Germany has no means of attacking. No bomber with the range, no fleet to carry an army, no plan on any shelf. Across the Atlantic, the formalities run in parallel. In Washington, Hans Thompson, the chargé who spent 2 years cabling warnings about American power, delivers Germany's note to the State Department. The man who told Berlin exactly what it was choosing now hands over the choice in an envelope. Congress reciprocates within hours, without a single dissenting vote. The dissenter who mattered never had a vote to cast. Because here is what did not happen in the 4 days between Pearl Harbor and the Kroll Opera House. No staff study was ordered, no economic assessment was commissioned. The Army General Staff, Halder's office, buried in the Moscow emergency, was informed, not consulted. Rader's Navy was heard only in the sense that its long-standing eagerness was already known. Hermann Göring, whose Reich offices oversee the war economy and hold the comparative production figures, raises no recorded objection. The figures exist. American steel output alone dwarfs the Reich's. They are treated, when mentioned at all, as propaganda. Hitler has said more than once that American production numbers are bluff, that a mongrel society cannot fight. The information needed to stop the decision is inside the system. The system has no room where that information can win. This is the machinery exposed at its purest. In 4 days, a regime that plans invasions for months adds the world's largest industrial power to its enemies on the strength of intuition, grievance, and a promise made to an ambassador over cigars. Weizsäcker's legal escape route, Japan attacked first, nothing is owed, is never seriously walked. Ribbentrop, whatever hesitation he later claims, signs and celebrates. The court has ruled. The courtiers compete to have always agreed. That same day, before the speech, Ribbentrop stages his ministry's triumph. With Oshima and the Italian ambassador, he signs the new three-power agreement, the pact binding Germany, Japan, and Italy to fight the United States and Britain to the end, and to conclude no separate peace. It is the document Berlin could not get before Pearl Harbor, when it might have bought coordination, signed after, when it buys only obligation. Germany now has, in writing, the loyalty of an ally that did not warn it. What Germany does not have, and never asks for, is a joint plan. No combined staff, no shared strategy. Japan will fight its ocean, Germany will fight its continent. The Axis becomes the only alliance in the war whose members fight separate wars against the same enemies. On the other side, within weeks, the men Hitler has just united will meet in Washington and build a combined command, a shared production board, and a single agreed priority: Germany first. Hitler's own reasoning surfaces in fragments. To his circle, he repeats the Atlantic logic. America was already shooting. The declaration merely honors an existing fact. He tells the Japanese ambassador that one cannot lead a great power by half measures. And beneath it runs the older conviction, stated in the speech itself. Roosevelt and the powers behind him always intended this war. So timing is all that Germany has conceded. He believes he has chosen the moment. He has only chosen the paperwork. What no one at the Kroll Opera House says aloud is what the front already knows. That same week, Halder's diary records the Moscow position deteriorating day by day. Within a fortnight, the commander of Army Group Center is gone. The panzer generals are being sacked, and Hitler assumes personal command of the army whose winter he did not plan. Germany's war doubles in size in the same month its existing war stops obeying orders. The 5 boats are loading torpedoes in the French ports. The window Donitz promised is about to open, and to prove, briefly and terribly, that the decision looked right. In the second week of January 1942, the lights of the American East Coast do exactly what Donitz predicted. Cities glow, tankers steam alone, running lights burning, silhouetted against boardwalks and neon. The 5 boats of Paukenschlag surface into a war zone that does not know it is won. The drumbeat lands, and for months, no one answers it. Off New York, Cape Hatteras, and the Florida coast, the U-boats sink ships faster than crews can be rescued. Reinforcements follow the first wave. Through the spring of 1942, the waters of the American seaboard become the most profitable hunting ground German submarines will ever know. Hundreds of ships, millions of tons, oil slicks washing onto tourist beaches. American commanders resist convoys, resist blackouts, repeat the mistakes Britain paid to learn 2 years earlier. For half a year, the decision of December 11th looks like genius. Then the system on the other side does what Thompson's cables always said it would. Convoys are organized. Coastal cities go dark. Escorts multiply. Aircraft extend their reach, and the easy tonnage vanishes. The battle moves back to the mid-Atlantic, where it becomes arithmetic, and the arithmetic now includes American shipyards. By late 1942, Allied yards are building merchant ships faster than the U-boats can sink them. Liberty ships slide down the ways in days. Donitz's tonnage war required the other side's production to stay still. It has instead become the fastest-growing number in the world. In May 1943, the arithmetic closes over the U-boat arm itself. Escort carriers and long-range aircraft seal the air gap. In a single month, 41 boats do not come home. Donitz, by then Grand Admiral, having replaced Raeder after Hitler raged at the surface fleet's failures, withdraws his boats from the North Atlantic. He writes in the war diary that the enemy holds the trump cards. Of the roughly 40,000 men who serve in German submarines across the war, some 30,000 die in them. 3 of every 4. No service in any nation's armed forces suffers worse. And the Atlantic is only the ocean lane of the consequence. 11 months after the Reichstag speech, American soldiers wade ashore in North Africa, the first of the landings that the declaration made politically possible, that Germany first made certain. American bombers reach the Reich in 1943, arrive over Berlin in 1944, and by then, the sky belongs to an air force built by the industry Hitler called bluff. The war he declared in 88 minutes arrives over his cities at the rate of 1,000 bombers a raid. The men of December 1941 meet their separate ends. Halder is dismissed in 1942 and finishes the war in a concentration camp after the July plot. Raeder resigns in 1943 and draws a life sentence at Nuremberg. Weizsäcker, the man who noted the legal escape no one used, is convicted at Nuremberg despite it. Oshima cables Tokyo faithfully to the end. His encrypted reports, read all along by American codebreakers, serve the Allies as a window into Hitler's thinking. Dönitz succeeds Hitler for 20 days as head of a destroyed state and signs its surrender authorization. Ribbentrop is hanged at Nuremberg in October 1946, the first of the condemned to climb the scaffold. At Nuremberg, in his cell, Ribbentrop is examined by Allied psychiatrists and interrogators, and among the papers of those months, one exchange survives him. Asked about the destruction of Germany, he says that everything had depended on one man's decisions, that he had merely carried them out. The man who promised Oshima a war over cigars in November 1941 leaves behind, as his account of it, the statement that it was never his to promise. He carried the promise anyway. It was kept in 4 days. The accounting closes where it opened. An evening in December 1941, a commercial radio broadcast crackling into the German Foreign Ministry, announcing an attack on a harbor most officials cannot place on a map. A foreign minister refusing to be disturbed, certain the report is a trick, because no ally would start such a war without telling him. The broadcast was true. Everything Berlin needed to know was already in it. The ally that did not warn, the ministry that did not know, the system with no one whose job it was to ask what came next. The radio told Germany that the war had changed. Nothing in Germany was built to hear it. The chain runs backward through a single link. Not Pearl Harbor. Berlin did not order that. Not the tripartite pact. Its text demanded nothing. The link is the promise of late November 1941. Ribbentrop's assurance to Oshima, given to stiffen Japan, unstudied, unpriced, binding only because the one man who mattered chose to honor a debt he never legally owed. A pact signed to deter America ended by delivering Germany to her. Hitler called the declaration a formality. It was the only one he ever observed. The Kroll Opera House is gone. A lawn covers the ground where the deputies applauded. In the American National Archives, the German Declaration of War sits in a folder. 4 pages, received December 11th, 1941. The paper is still there.